What's good, y'all? Hope everybody's well. Shout out to those of you who came through. I know there was no notice, just kind of popped up. Shout out to AB. What's good? Layman's Journal. Always good to see you, man. Make sure y'all check out both AB and Layman's Journal's channels and support both of them. Shout out to Dark Power for the Cash App. Appreciate that. Adric, what's going on? Ron. Walaikum salam, Ilyas. I hope you're well. Shout out to Growth Talk with Kofa. What's good, man? Y'all always got to support Growth Talk, man. Go over his channel, subscribe. Shout out to Ahmed. What's going on? Busy Mike. Code Father. What's up? Bruce. Cellulite. What's going on? Cellulite. What's happening, y'all? I'm not going to be up long. I just got out of the theater, so I just kind of wanted to give people not really my critique, because I'm gonna, I'll do that when we deal with spoilers, but really just, the kind of mood it put me in, my preliminary thoughts. I'll share a little bit of that. There won't be any spoilers on this, so if you're still, trying to weigh in on if you're gonna see it, maybe my impression will give you a sense of what direction you feel like going in. I don't know, but I'm not gonna spoil anything. I'll put it that much. Nevertheless, I hope everybody's well. Let me go ahead and get my rigmarole up here so you can see how to support the show. If you want to support the channel, you got Patreon, Cash App, PayPal, Venmo, all that info right there. So I appreciate in advance anything you choose to do, and we'll get it going. But like I said, this won't be too long. I'm going to share a few thoughts and, hear what you guys got to say as far as that's concerned. Now, before I jump into that, I just want to share that y'all know whenever I get a new piece for the collection, I got to share it with y'all. So this is for my diehard geeks and nerds, and I mean diehard, because I'm as soon as you see it, you'll know if you're a diehard if you know what it is. If you don't know what it is, I ain't gonna lose no respect for you, but I wouldn't say you were diehard. So this is the newest piece in my collection. It's a little big, so this is about as small as I can get it for you on camera. There you go. So if y'all know what it is, you know what it is. Just got it in the mail a couple days ago. So there was a piece that was a little more authentic, but I wasn't about to pay what they wanted for it. So this one I liked. It was well enough. You know what I'm saying? I've been wanting this since I was a kid. Well, honestly, I just wanted to throw it at somebody, but I'm not going to throw it. But it's still nice to have in the collection. So you know what it is. That's right. Kroll. Down with Kroll, you know what it is. I just had to share that. Y'all the only ones I can really share this stuff with. So leave it to me to pick a hobby that's not really social. Like this is not really anything you go around town showing. Anyway. Comes with a stand, but it's really kind of moody on how it fits on there. But anyway, yeah. Shout out to Kroll. Yep. Had to get that piece, the glaive. Absolutely, Longo. Yeah, man. You don't know about that? I don't know what to tell you. It is worth watching. I think it still holds up. All in all, you'll see a young Liam Neeson in there and a few other people I grew up watching. Nonetheless, does it have real blades? Now, that's not a real piece, not a metal piece. I only saw one. I only found one that actually had actual metal blades, and the piece itself was heavy metal, or at least that's what it looked like. But they wanted a crazy price for it, and I wasn't going to do that. I have a willingness to spend a few dollars on my pieces, but when you just go too far out of the range, like I have some pieces in here. When I first found them, certain sellers wanted, anywhere between $5,000 and $10,000 for one sword. I'm not doing that. So until I find a price I can roll with, I either not get it, or if I see something that's not quite as high quality, but the price is reasonable, I may get it just to have in the collection. So, but yeah, that's what's up. So anyway, just getting out the theater, would have did it in the car, but I haven't had a whole lot of luck with that, as far as the stream not, going in and out. So I didn't do that. Plus it's raining and it's pretty dark here. So it was a little rough, but I'm literally just walking in the house. and I just wanted to share my preliminary thoughts. Now, I'll just say right out the gate, I've been hearing for over the last year that this was going to be absolutely horrible. I mean, this was going to be the Marvels. This was going to be, just it was just going to be ridiculously horrible. They had a lot of reshoots and all of that. So I went into it with on just some pure, I'm a 45-year comic book collector. So I just went in with that. I just blanked everything else out and just went in with that. Now I have no and I don't have a dog in the fight. If a Marvel movie is horrible, I've seen horrible before. I'm not gonna lose any sleep about it. So I had no reason to go in and try and focus on making it better than it was. I was ready to accept it however it presented. I'll tell you this much. It's not in game. You're not gonna get in game. But it was not horrible. And a lot of people ask, well, is it meh? I didn't think it was meh either. I thought it was a little better than that. To me, it was early MCU in a way. It reminded me of like the early MCU vibes where they were building up. Except there are some clear differences, right? Because in this film, we're years after that. I think Iron Man was 2008? We're years away from early MCU, but in light of what's happened, in light of, this pseudo woke culture thing they've been trying to do with Disney over the years, I'll put it to you this way. Captain America Brave New World is a good first step back toward something worthy of being excited about. It's a good first step. It's not the best thing ever made. It is far from as horrible as I'm hearing a lot of these film reviewers. And I only listened to a couple on purpose. I didn't want them to overly taint my perspective. But I watched a couple of them. I got the tone of it. And it was pretty consistent with what I expected them to say. Because a lot of this, has really been shaped by race. Now, some of the other woke complaints that we've had, and I've agreed with over the years, has been how feminism has influenced this, that all of those different dynamics. I agreed with a lot of that. But here's the fundamental issue. And y'all know I'm a Black masculinist, so I'm gonna approach this that way. The problem people have with Black Captain America, especially on social media, has been because he's Black. Just put the shit out there and stop pretending like it isn't what it is. That's fundamentally what they were upset about. They didn't like it in the comics. They didn't like it in the movies. So the whole idea, or the Disney show, TV show, they didn't like the idea of a Black Captain America. And a lot of people are trying to hide their racism and pretend like it's something else. But that's, especially for a lot of the white dudes who are pissed off at Disney, that's really what it came down to. I wouldn't put, even in the comics, Sam Wilson as the same, in the same kind of tone as you put making Captain Marvel the most powerful being in the MCU. And if you're a comic book reader, I mean, she's been a C or D level character for decades. I mean, at the end of the day, I don't think I'd ever seen a character whose powers was stolen by a villain and people loved the villain more than the hero that the powers were taken from. Rogue took Captain Marvel's powers, and she was in a coma for years. Shit, by the time, Rogue joined the X-Men, people loved her. And by the time the cartoons jumped off and up to now, people love Rogue. People love Rogue more than they love Captain Marvel. And Rogue was a villain at first that stole her powers. It says a lot about how a character is written and treated over the years. But as Artisan has said on multiple occasions, Marvel looked at DC, they saw Wonder Woman, and they wanted to find a way to cash in on that. So I get it. But I'm just saying, Sam is not Captain Marvel. Now, I'm the first to tell you, I do not like my Black heroes powerless. I don't. I want to see Black men in particular with power. And they talk about that in the film. The whole question of the super soldier serum, Sam mulls it over. They talk about it. So I appreciated that they at least acknowledged it. Because, and I'm not talking about the film, I'm talking about when this happened in the comics, I was a little pissed. Because I want to see Black heroes with superpowers. I do. As a kid that grew up seeing them as nothing but sidekicks, and if they had powers, they were laughable, including Sam. I mean, Sam's power was he could talk to one bird. He could communicate with one bird, Red Wing. Now, I'll say, just like in the the previous Marvel movies and the Disney Plus series, Sam still has Red Wing. I like how they dealt with it. I remember when I first heard there was going to be a Falcon. I wasn't sure how they were going to do this whole Red Wing thing, but they did it. And, we've seen them do it, but they kind of augmented it. And that's something I guess I can mention now before I forget. Uh, there's an evolution to his abilities, which I like. And they got to do that in movies to keep it from getting too boring. You can't see everything he can do in the first movie and then watch him do the same shit over and over again. They actually showed an evolution of his abilities. That's great. Little, it's a little patchwork. It's not quite as seamless as it could be, but it was okay. It was okay. Everything that happened within the realm of believability in terms of the kind of laws of the MCU, if you will. I know one of the things that I was curious about, because I saw this in the trailer, so there's no spoilers. But when they showed it in the posters too, and you see Red Hulk punching the shield, I'm like, Adam, vibranium ain't absorbing that damn much. He'd be smashed into paste. Well, they actually address that, and they show how he's able to endure that, which I appreciated. And it was a kind of in-universe explanation that made sense. But if you'd have just showed me him fighting Red Hulk the way Steve was fighting Green Hulk, I'd have just looked at you sideways, because that super soldier serum is real. But they actually explain it, and I appreciate that. So that said, there was an evolution to his abilities. The overall story was a good step toward a return to form. But the problem people have with it has more to do with a black man. It's, what? It's a very similar tone when white boys were real pissed off that Black Panther beat up Captain America in the comic books. That's the tone it has, that he shouldn't be there. And, now I'm not one, like I said, I like to see my black heroes with power, but I'm also a Batman fan. So if they don't have power, but you can show me what they can do and it's explained well, at least within the laws of that universe, I'm good. And that's one of the issues coming up with James Gunn's DC and his Batman. Is he going to be gritty and realistic, or is he going to be more comic book based? I kind of want to see comic book based at this point, but truthfully, either way is fine as long as you explain what the rules are to that universe and that Batman, and you stick to them, and you show us how creatively they can function within the rules of that dynamic. I'm good either way, but just don't have them throwing a batarang at Darkseid and knocking him out. No, you give me some rules that he has to function by, and then show me, because that's what they did. That's what the best movies do. They did that with Iron Man. Iron Man, the first movie, you get to see the evolution from the first suit all the way to his nanotech suit. And they kept expanding and building on the rules, but it was within the confines of a progressive framework that made sense. He didn't just have an armor that could do anything. You saw the progression of it. They do that similarly with Sam, and I appreciated that. So I thought in that respect, it wasn't bad. It wasn't bad. It's nowhere near, in my humble opinion, what I think the internet is trying to make out of it. And a lot of that, again, comes back to this whole question of a black cap, which is really subtly tied to this whole DEI push, because DEI and Marvel have kind of gone together visually in the films like bacon and eggs. And the reality of it is a lot of that comes out of frustration for them to want to return to a framework where you treat it just like the comics. And the problem with the comics over the years is, if you really treat it to form, you wouldn't have a whole lot of people of color in that joint. And this is something that black comic book readers have been fighting over for generations. And this is one of the things I talked about in one of my early reviews on my blog of Black Panther. You had generations of black men in particular who were fighting, just like you had black women fighting for Barbie to evolve and include black Barbie dolls. Well, you had black men fighting for black maleness in comics. They made independent books. They made books that fought its way into the mainstream. You had artists and writers, from McDuffie all the way to Milestone and many more, pushing into mainstream comics to really force that in. And that, of course, was supplemented by real life black male accomplishments, from our participation in military wars to the boxing ring to baseball, football, basketball. Black men proved that they deserved their place. They deserve to be on the battlefield. The problem with DEI is it threw everybody in the field, and then it created a hierarchy that dismissed black men. And so a lot of the white cats that are upset about DEI and they want to eliminate all of it have thrown black men into the DEI bucket. But we were never in it. And this is the frustration. On a larger scale, this is the problem between the right and the left politically. The left has kind of bought into the notion that heterosexual maleness is inherently problematic and exploitive. So black men are thrown into that bucket as far as the left is concerned, which is why when they constructed affirmative action and DEI, it largely didn't include us. The right, especially during this, what they were calling this red wave, this response, with the election of Trump and the pushback against DEI culture, they see it as important, to get rid of people like Sam and black men in comics and whatnot as a push to get rid of DEI. But the problem is neither camp has embraced black men in any significant way. So one side is trying to get rid of you because of the DEI pushback. The other side tried to get rid of you because you're a heterosexual male. So they look at Black Captain America and they say, well, this is DEI. We got to get rid of it. And that's what a lot of the hatred online is about before people even saw the movie. And it was like, no, black men are actually not in the DEI camp, not because, we couldn't be, because when you really look at the language of that or affirmative action, black men should have been the first people addressed, but we weren't. And so we're not really largely accepted in either camp, which is why they don't really know what to do with us. And Captain America is falling right in the middle of that conflict. These cats have been looking for a reason to hate this movie since they first heard it was coming out. And they were looking to hate the Disney series as well. And even though I didn't think the villains in the series were all that great, and the speech at the end was a little hokey as far as Sam is concerned, it wasn't a bad series. It really wasn't. I enjoyed the series. There were just minor things I didn't like, but it was nowhere near what a lot of these cats are trying to present it as. So this movie is okay. It's not brilliant. It's not horrible. And it's not even just meh. It's a little above meh as far as I'm concerned, especially if you love the lore. And one of my favorite things about the whole Black Captain America series, and I know that's not what it's called, but that's what I'm going to call it. My favorite thing about the whole thing, honestly, is Isaiah Bradley. I have been a diehard Isaiah Bradley fan since it first came out, the comic. Now, I didn't like, I didn't like the artwork they used in that series in the comic book. I really didn't like it. I thought it could have been much better, but at the end of the day, the story was phenomenal as far as I'm concerned. It was absolutely phenomenal. Let me see. I'm trying to get, damn it. All right, that's good enough. It's not what I wanted, but I'll work with it. This is this is one of my favorite pictures for years, just off the strength of that. Absolutely great. You know what I mean? That should have been how the comic was made, with that art style right there. Instead, they ended up doing something a little hokey. As far as I was concerned, it was comical in a funny way, like you would do a Sunday comics kind of deal. I can see the cover. I'm trying to see if there's some internal artwork kind of show you what I mean. Of course, it's not easy to find because everything right now is about the new movie. But anyway, as far as that was concerned, Isaiah Bradley was one of my favorite characters. And I really dig Carl Lumley, who plays him. Because if you, I think part of that was also because I was watching the old Justice League series this past week. So here's some of the images here. So you can look. This is the kind of artwork that they used in the series. It was, it's a little non-serious. It's a little, Sunday comic booky in a way. I prefer a more gritty style, but it is what it is, So, but the book's writing is brilliant. And I never thought that I would actually see Isaiah Bradley hit the big screen. So, Carl Lumley, not only do I like the brother, I've loved the brother's work since Mantis, when he played the Mantis superhero on TV. So I dug him then. I was happy to see him come back as John Jones in Justice League. So I went into the movie with some appreciation for Carl Lumley. And truth be told, I really loved his presence in the Disney Plus, Captain America and Winter Soldier series, the TV series. I loved his presence there. I didn't think it was going to happen. And they gave him a very realistic presence for somebody who instead of World War II, they put him in the Korean War. And, he pretty much did his thing despite the lack of support of his country. So they brought that, that African American history element to it. Shout out to Adrian. He says, my appreciation was about Sam rejecting the center. Yeah, I know. A lot of people liked it. I particularly didn't really like that. I wanted him to have power. To me, it just looked like a reason to make sure black men don't have power, but that's on a meta level. Within the crux, the way they wrote the story and they kind of explain it in the film, it makes sense in the context of that. On a meta level, I don't like to see my black male heroes without power. I think they'd rather enjoy seeing us without power, and I personally don't like it. But I can say I didn't hate it in the film because the way he kind of went about, how would you say, compensating and maneuvering against the fact that he doesn't have powers, it was welcome. It was a welcome kind of view. Shout out to Brandon. He says some of the more racist geeks out there only voted for Trump because they stupidly think Trump can somehow get rid of DEI themes, comic book films, and reprioritize white masculinity in films. And to some extent, that will probably happen. But this is where my problem is in regard to black men. Neither side has any love for black men. Neither side has embraced black men. Both sides have a degree of antipathy toward black men. So whether it's the left or the right, they're happy to show us either or not show us at all, or show us in a very subjugated position. And the film actually didn't do that. In terms of the film, Sam has the spotlight, he has the stage, you get to see his thought process, you get to see him solving problems, you get to see him addressing what to prioritize and what not to. He's basically, he has a spine, he makes his own decisions. I appreciated that. But, when I see it a second time, maybe I'll see a little more to it. Again, I'm fresh out the theater, so I haven't really had a chance to ponder on it a whole lot. Kareem says some of the criticisms is tied to BDS boycott over Gaza issue and IDF soldier in the film. Yeah, again, I got to re-see it to really kind of capture a lot of that. I went in looking for certain things and paying attention to things I was focused on before I went into the theater, so I'll probably have to go back and catch the more subtle elements. But as far as I'm concerned, the majority of the critique I'm hearing is really veiled in regard to race and this kind of use of anti-DEI as an excuse to attack black men, when in reality black men have never been DEI and really didn't benefit to any great extent either way. So a lot of this hatred toward the film and Sam as a character is a veiled hatred toward black men that don't deserve it because we haven't benefited one way or the other. Shout out to AB. He says, I'm not waiting on them to embrace black men. I'm using AI to create my own superhero images. Yeah, I saw that. And that's great. And I'm not suggesting you wait. There's a long legacy of independent black male comic book writers and artists and characters. I'm not suggesting anybody wait, but if something hits the screen about the black male image, I'm going to check it out. And I can say as far as this one, it wasn't as bad as people thought, and they're trying to make it out to be. And I think, what's the brother? How am I blanking on his name? The brother who's actually playing Sam Wilson. How am I blanking on it? What's his name, y'all? Y'all help me out real quick. Somebody drop his name. I'm blanking on it at the moment. He did an okay job as far as the acting is concerned. It's pretty consistent with what he's done in the past. He didn't kind of deliver physically the way I've seen MCU actors come to the table. Thank you, Anthony Mackie. I don't know how I forgot the brother's name. He did an okay job. Acting wise, he did cool. Physically, he kind of came to the table much like Namor. I mean, don't get me wrong, the brother was in shape, but he wasn't in shape. Like he wasn't in Chris Evans shape or, the cat that played Thor. He didn't come on that level. And to me, I'm like, you finally get your only film. It may be the only one, come 100%. But then again, who knows? I mean, maybe the callbacks, maybe he was in better shape at one point, got called back at another. All of those things can affect, how you kind of arrive. So they do have one scene where he takes his shirt off, and I was just like, for your MCU movie, I'm expecting you to come to the table. But he was okay. He didn't come as strong as he could have, but his acting was cool. The film wasn't a drawback, in terms of lowering the quality or really lowering the push toward the MCU returning to its glory. If there's going to be any film that ruins that push, it's not this one. But a lot of the frustration people have is misdirected at Black men, and I think Sam Wilson as a character is going to be the one to suffer for that to some extent. And they're still trying to deliver a message to Marvel. I think Marvel has kind of gotten the message. Whether they completely respond to it, we will see. But as far as this movie is concerned, I didn't see any evidence that they completely dropped the ball or anything like that. Like in other films, we talk about woke. You gotta remember. The example I use is when I was looking at the Iron Fist series on Netflix, and what's her name? The one who's a nurse. Damn it, man, my memory's been horrible lately. But anyway, he had a nurse character in the film, and it looked like some Navy SEALs had broken into this dojo where she happened to be, and she was throwing punches and knocking Navy SEALs out on her lunch break from the hospital. I'm like, this shit is ridiculous. Stop this. Just stop it. That's to me where it's gotten to. It just got too far. But that's not what you're gonna get with a Sam Wilson, Anthony Mackie kind of dynamic. Any fight that he was in, he had to see him struggle. He got his ass kicked at different points, and he had to figure things out. There was nothing handed to him, which in many respects is the legacy of Black men in any context. There's nothing handed to us, which is one of the misgivings about DEI. It's based on this idea that it's unearned. Well, Black men are the last ones to be accused of not having earned wherever they are. So, my son is in a movie class. He said they're playing Star Wars: A New Hope. I love it. I always give him a whole lot to take back to his class discussions. But anyway, I see a couple people mentioning his other roles. She Hate Me. I love that film. Papa Doc. Yep. That was actually quite funny. Even though I don't think it was meant to be. But anyway, so that was that. I wouldn't listen to these people that say it's the worst thing ever. Go check it out. And if anything, I went to support Mackie. He's an executive producer on it. Whatever things went wrong behind the scenes in terms of the filming, I don't think any of that was Anthony's fault. I really don't. As much as I thought he could have come to the table more prepared physically for a superhero role, he wasn't out of shape. He just wasn't as in shape as I would have liked for him to be. That aside, he came to work. He put everything he could in the role, and I think he did his part. You know what I mean? So I give him credit in that respect. Miguel Rosario Dawson. Yeah, appreciate that. Yeah, her fine ass. But anyway, she was beating up Navy SEALs, and they were dropping from the ceiling with ropes, and she was just slugging them. And I'm just like, if y'all don't stop this, just stop it. That to me is DEI. That's when it gets ridiculous. Or, of course, the classic example of Rey from Star Wars, where you just know everything, but you never had to learn it. That's not what you get with Black male characters. Whether you're talking about even the sidekicks, the Falcons and the War Machines, even they don't get that kind of treatment as sidekicks. I just resented that they were still sidekicks in the 2020s. It's ridiculous. That aside, that's not what you're getting with Sam. You're getting and Anthony Mackie Sam is trying to bring the element, the Black male element to the story. And I think the way he is, I don't know how much power he's had in this, but the inclusion and consistent inclusion of Isaiah Bradley was, I think, a good move. I enjoyed that. I like seeing Isaiah Bradley's character continue to evolve, and he actually does evolve. From the DC series to this film, you see his evolution. Because when you first meet him, he is, as you would understand, frustrated. And they talk about this in the Disney series. He was incarcerated. He was experimented on for decades. And he got out. But how would you be after all of that? So when Sam finally meets him for the first time, he is, he's in a very different place. And when you see him in this film, you actually see a man that's actually begun to return to the world in a particular way. And you get the impression that it's partially the brotherhood with Sam. So you got a multi-dimensional element to it where you have an older Black man and a younger Black man who understand each other and there's a healing that's taken place that partially is due to this younger brother who sees him and understands what he's been through and honors him with a certain level of respect. Now, I've had several mentors from childhood to adulthood, so I have an appreciation for that relationship between older and younger men. And I've tried to carry that forward by having several mentees in my lifetime so far, and I'm sure I'll have more. But I think that's a time-honored tradition that needs to be kept alive amongst Black men in particular. And I appreciated the film for kind of going there. So you got to see another element of that. You got to see us, but again, it's not stuck in time. The characters continue to grow and evolve. So if you're gonna see it, if you haven't seen the Disney series, I would highly recommend you see that first, which I know the MCU planned it that way, but I think in this instance it fits. Let me see. Try and keep up with some of the comments here. Yeah, Zenson says can't be DEI when Black men have fought in every war since the country's inception. Absolutely. Shout out to Gail. I see you in there. How you doing? Let's see. Ethan says can't wait for the 4K with 3 disc worth of reshoots. yeah. It's but again, I tried to just take it in for how it was being presented. Because what I thought about is when I thought about how many people were pointing out the reshoots and how this was going to fail, they were mostly white comic book heads that had a serious antipathy toward anything what they considered DEI related. But the problem was, and I've heard this for years in very subtle fashion, they included Black men in that. And they would often make these judgments that didn't actually reflect on the performance as much as their preconceived ideas about how DEI played on that. So I wanted to actually go see it without having allowed that taint my view. And I just took it in for what it was on the surface and analyzed it there. And like I said, I'm still analyzing. I may go see it again before I do, a spoiler review. Yeah, Jeremy, Mary Sue, exactly. The assumption is that Black men are Mary Sues. But one of the pieces of evidence that disproves that is the legacy of Black men that goes back, to the inception of the country, where Black men have put it on the line, and demonstrated that they are capable in every way possible, every way that matters to a culture of men. You can't suggest Black men are not men, Black men are weak, Black men are this or that, and they're still constantly doing this in very subtle ways. But Black men have proven over the generations that that's not the case. So when you get to a film like this, Brave New World, that's partly what a lot of that critique is about. It's partly what that's about. Let me see. You said Finn sure had a rough ride in those prequels. Absolutely. And that's part of that derogatory legacy in terms of how they played Finn in the Star Wars series. Constantly afraid, running after someone, looking for someone to, that's not what you get here. Sam he's got his own spine. He makes his own decisions, and it is what it is. Whether you would agree with his decisions is different than whether or not he's a man standing on his own 2 feet making those decisions. And I want to kind of, look at the difference between those two things. Growth Talk says, how was Giancarlo Esposito's performance? And look, man, you're not really going to find Giancarlo half-assing in anything. The brother has been on point since the very first time I've ever seen him in a film. He did his part, but it's not a big role. It's a very subtle role. The indication was it was supposed to be part of a larger story involving a whole snake cult, which is, relevant in terms of the Captain America comic series. I won't say much about that. Again, this is a non-spoiler review, but I will say, it's a small part. It's a small role. He pops his head up a couple of times. There's some conversations that take place. I would attribute any flaws in it to the writing. There was nothing about his performance that was slacking at all. I think the only questions that would come to bear is, how could he have been used differently? Could the writing have been better? That's always going to be a question. And I'm sure the writing could have definitely been better. But again, I'm not saying that this is the next end game. I'm saying that this is a good first step back to form. And back to doesn't mean the elimination of diversity if you really use it in a non-corporate way, but merely going back to the hero's journey, going back to character-driven stories, well written, well rounded out, three-dimensional characters whose motivations become understandable. That's, I think, what this film. I put it to you this way: this film offers promise to those who've been very, very upset with how much the MCU has pissed away a lot of the quality to these stories. The film is almost like an attempt to suggest to the audience we're heading back to form. But again, this is not in game. This is a promise. Now, in the next film or two, if they drop the ball, they drop the ball. But in terms of this initial step, not bad. Not the greatest thing ever, but it ain't horrible. It's a good first step. And let me see. Ghetto user says they never notify me. Yeah, but I'm sure the algorithm is playing with me because I haven't been consistent either. Let's see. Brandon. So Brandon says, I agree with your theory that they want to see black heroes powerless. I think the film could have had a plot where Sam is wounded and needs a blood transfusion from Isaiah and reluctantly gets you know what? That's perfect. I wouldn't have been mad at that because Isaiah even does a couple things where you almost forget who you're looking at until he does something and you're like, super soldier serum. And I will say it is different from the comic because in the comic, the version they gave him had him with the mentality of a child. He couldn't even speak anymore. I'm glad they didn't go that route. And that was one of the reasons I was excited to see him in the Disney series. Because, when I first found out they were going to bring Isaiah Bradley in, I was excited. But then I was like, it would be a misstep to bring him in the way he is at the end of the comic, where he's basically a mute child with the body of a bodybuilder. That to me, even though the comic series was written by brothers and they did a phenomenal job, I did not like the way that ended. His wife was still alive in the comic series, but she's kind of his mouthpiece. She thinks for him. She kind of speaks for him. She takes care of him. He's in the back of the house coloring books like a 4-year-old, but he still he looks like George Foreman. You know what I mean? In the comic book, he looked like George Foreman, huge, muscular. He still looks young because the serum has him, looking like he doesn't really age, but it breaks down his intellectual capabilities and his speech. I'm glad they didn't go that route with this. So Carl Lumley, gives you a fully articulate, pissed off brother who was experimented on and used in the Korean War prior to that. And he speaks the way a brother in his position would. He's as distrustful as a brother in his position would be. And he's as resentful, as all of that. So I appreciated that they played him that way. Golden Child says, I've never benefited from DI policies. Yeah, most of us didn't. Let's see. Cat K says should have got the Russo brothers Marvels finished. See, like I said, it could have been better. Maybe the Russo brothers could have done it. There was some brothers I would have liked to have seen get a better chance at this. But I'm gonna see if they ever do Blade, and if they do, how they treat it. And truthfully, I think some of the feedback they get from this is going to shape a little bit of that, but we'll see. But I can say Anthony Mackie didn't allow it to be a Mary Sue moment. He didn't allow it to be a dismissible venture on those grounds, even though people are going to do it anyway for their own purposes, but he wasn't going to help them any more than possible. Now, maybe a couple of the interviews he gave, he could have articulated some things a little better, but in terms of the film, it's not a bad film. It's not a bad film. It's just, it's just not in game. So if you're going in expecting the height of the MCU, you'll be disappointed because that's not what it is. But then again, think about how many pre-Mary Sue MCU films were at the height of Endgame. I mean, if you remember how long it took to build up to Endgame, and then they squandered all of the equity from that. And this is the building back toward it. And I would say it would be Deadpool and Wolverine, but that's not technically MCU. So the MCU hasn't really earned the audience back. I mean, they've kind of benefited, from being indirectly tied to Deadpool and Wolverine, but the MCU itself, in my humble opinion, they have not earned the audience's respect back. So I think this film is a first step toward attempting to do that. You got to judge for yourself if you think they've been successful, but I thought it was better than not. LXST says, in the series, you see the conflict with him taking up the mantle of Cap, and you see his evolution into fully embracing his new role, where it ultimately comes to a head in the final episode. Yeah, you do. And people have had a lot to say about the speech he gave, but if you look at it in terms of the hero's journey, he undergoes the journey. But I like how they included the multi-generational black male aspect with Isaiah and tied that into his hero's journey, where Isaiah becomes a kind of unofficial mentor by making sure that Sam is not able to forget the history regarding black men and this flag. You know what I mean? And that still is there in this, even to the point where I would say Isaiah begins to mentor Sam outside of just the history. So I'm not, I'm doing a spoiler-free review, but when you see the film, you get to see that, Isaiah plays a role in Sam's life that I appreciate. Which I think, in the initial Black Panther, the first one, we don't really talk about the second one over here. And we have serious questions about the first one. Don't get that twisted, but the second one doesn't really exist to me. But even in the first one, there was a legacy of multi-generational relationships between men, fathers and sons. With Sam, you get mentor mentee because there's no blood relation, but you still have a similar dynamic. And I appreciate with black male stories that is an element of it. I actually do. Let me see. So Golden Child says, please tell me Mackey's character has a love interest in the movie that's a biological woman. Look, I'm promising in this one to do a spoiler free, but I can tell you how will I put this? I think this is big. What you're raising, I think, is bigger than Captain America. I think this is an MCU-wide problem because the only other black character of note, I mean, technically we could talk about Luke Cage. I think Luke Cage, they kind of did better with relationships than they did in the films themselves. So Luke Cage, he kind of gets a pass on relationships with women because he at least has them. When you give me a Black Panther that can't pull a woman, that makes no damn sense to me. He's the king of his own country, but his ex-woman who he's chasing after treats him like something off her shoe. That to me is a slap in the face. That is a Geordie LaForge level slap in the face as far as I'm concerned. And let's just say in that regard, yeah, you might have a handprint on your face on this one. So I'll leave it at that. They still can't quite balance black men well in terms of being men, being heroes, being having women in their lives in some intimate way. They can't seem to figure out how that balance works. They can figure it out with anybody else, but for black men, they still can't really figure it out. So yeah, it is what it is. Like I said, it's not the perfect film. It's not the best thing ever made, but it's a good step. And if you go into it looking at it as a step, then you could take it in for what it is. Let's see. Let me see. Salute Revelator, how you doing? Let's see. Blade was on hiatus. He was on hiatus until they saw the love for Wesley Snipes. And then you started hearing them talking about, doing a Blade film because really, even amongst white folk, when Blade walked in Deadpool and Wolverine, the audience went nuts a lot of the time. There's several different movie recordings that people made, in the theater, and even in the theater I was in, the audience went nuts when Blade walked in. And it wasn't just because of the other heroes that he was standing up there with. They specifically went nuts when Wesley walked in the room, and then they went nuts again for Gambit or whatever. But it was his applause. So Disney kind of, I think they figured out, the MCU figured out that Wesley deserves a lot of respect because he's really the foundational actor that kicked all of this off. I mean, he and brother who plays Spawn, right? You can't disrespect those two cats. Because between Spawn and Blade, that made all of this possible. Now they haven't given, the brother who plays Spawn his due yet, but at least Wesley is starting to get his flowers. So that said, I'm hoping they figure out a way to bring him and Mahershala in the same film. But that's where the talks of Blade started kicking up again. And even from what I understand, Ryan is behind the push for Blade to get a film too, which is some interesting kind of poetic, karma in a way. If you watch how that third Blade flick went, you could see they were trying to pass off his film to Ryan Reynolds. And so for Ryan to be instrumental in trying to get Wesley back into Blade, that there's some symmetry to that. I've said that before. So, yep. LXST makes an interesting point. So DEI benefited his female classmates versus male. Yep, I saw it as well. Let's see. Try and catch up here. Let me just go. So is Refa, what's going on? Let me see. Golden Child says, I think the reason Luke Cage was getting play was because I believe the writers of the show were black. Yeah, I think, I definitely think that's a significant part of this. A part of why it happened. And I think, for Luke Cage, it was one of the more, it might be the leading black male based story in the MCU in terms of it actually being a three-dimensional portrayal of a character. You get to see him, from different emotional states, going through different experiences. You get to see him in different contexts, happy, sad, in love, hurt, tortured, heroic. You get to see him in all these different dimensions that you often don't get to see black men in. The only difference was that it happened on the small screen and not the big one, which I think a black male character deserves. I don't think Sam's character is as rounded out as Luke Cage was, but it was more rounded than what I expected. And the story was more complete than I thought it would be. Jeremy asks, how was Harrison Ford's performance? Harrison now especially will do things mainly for a check, but he looked like he showed up to work. He played a more three-dimensional Thaddeus Ross than I saw previously. And that's no disrespect to the previous actor, because I don't think that was really a portrayal issue. I think Ross has been written in a way that was almost one-dimensional until we get to Civil War. And I think with Civil War, they tried to round him out a little bit. Thank you, Rainfire. Michael J. White. Yeah. Michael J. White and Wesley Snipes deserve a lot more respect than they've been getting for what they've done. Wesley is starting to get his flowers. White has not. Now, White is doing his own thing. He's making his own independent work, films, animated stuff. He ain't stopped either. So he's not waiting on anybody's flowers, and I'm not suggesting that Wesley is, but they do deserve them. And it looks like Wesley is starting to get his. But both of those brothers really laid down the modern era of comic book films, and they're not acknowledged as such. People keep talking about, the Hulk, and they talk about Iron Man, and I'm like, nah, y'all got to go back to Wesley and Michael. Y'all got to give, Spawn and Blade their due. And Wesley especially, man, the way he re-envisioned Blade. I mean, look, no disrespect to Michael. He played Spawn. He did a good job. He showed up to work. I'm not saying his performance was one-dimensional or anything, but Wesley added his own flavor to Blade in a way that maybe Michael just wasn't able to, because I know Todd McFarlane is a stickler, and I know he has to have things a certain way. But Blade, Wesley took free license with that. Because if you read Blade in the comic books, he's a C-level character, and nobody was mad that he was a C-level character. he didn't really deserve to be more than that because nobody had showed us any potential in the character. I saw him in the old Spider-Man cartoon in the early 90s. I saw him in the comic books. He was okay. He wasn't really spectacular. He was just okay. Wesley brought personality. He brought will. He brought anger and intensity. He brought so much to Blade. He brought Blade alive. Ain't nobody argue that that was anybody with Wesley. That was pure Wesley. And you even see an evolution from the dress to the storyline itself between the first, the second, and even the third. Third wasn't the worst thing ever made, but when you know they were trying to take his series from him, it's hard to respect the film because of what they're trying to do. But Wesley himself wasn't bad in the film at all. It was just what they were trying to do with the film. But the first two, especially, you see an evolution in the character from the tattoos to the hair to the outlook to the experience, the way what he was dealing with. Wesley brought a lot to that character that still hasn't been given his due. And I think that's why the audience went nuts when he walked in Deadpool and Wolverine. But Harrison Ford didn't do a bad job at all. He didn't. He was able to play a three-dimensional Ross because finally they wrote a three-dimensional story for Ross, an old warbird that has to figure out how to be more human than what he was. And he played it well enough. I mean, like I said, for Indiana Jones, which I refuse to watch, even in the trailers, it just looked like he was collecting a check, which I think he actually said at one point. But in terms of Ross, he collected a check. Don't get me wrong. But and I think that was the motivation, but I still think he brought an element to it that we hadn't seen with Ross. So I thought it was a worthy performance as far as Ross's character was concerned. Let's see. Ray says Michael wasn't happy with Spawn. Yeah, I don't know how much control he had over the presentation of it. I don't think he had very much. Rainfire says Michael J is coming to Comic-Con this year. Got to get my Black Dynamite costume ready. Yeah. Let's see. Try and catch up a bit. Says Wesley had more control. Todd McFarlane didn't even get Spawn the way he wanted him. Yeah. And they're starting to have talks about the next Spawn movie that apparently I think they already filmed with Jamie Foxx. I don't know, but I'm starting to hear more rumblings about that again. So we'll see if they come to the table with it. Yeah. Golden Child, you ain't never lied. The animated Spawn series from HBO is still the absolute best presentation of Spawn outside of the comics. My God. Keith David's voice. Oh, man. Keith David's voice for Spawn is what Wesley was for Blade, right? Michael did his thing, but he did his thing within the context of what he was given. Keith found a way to kind of just add dimensions to Spawn with his, and not just because you have a deep voice doesn't mean you can do that. I mean, the brother is an actor. He brought his acting to his voice work in a way that I think is still undercredited. That HBO series is fire, is absolute fire. Let's see. Yeah, Growth Talk says that was the standard. Absolutely. Ray says the Indiana Jones game was decent. It basically was a movie, and Tony Todd was in the game. Oh man, Tony Todd. Yeah, rest in peace. The voice of Venom. And I slept on those Venom films, and I saw them. I saw them when they came out, and I enjoyed them. But I went to see the third one, and I went back and watched the first two, and I forgot how much I actually enjoyed them. I think I just had a problem with the fact that it wasn't as tied to Spider-Man as I thought it should have been. I really didn't like, I don't like when they try to wing it. But I will say Venom and the rapport with Eddie, the acting, the writing, the rapport between the two, the arguing back and forth was hilarious. I thought they did a beautiful job with Venom. I never thought that they could create a Venom on screen that I would actually have some empathy for as a character. But they really did. Tony Todd did his thing. Much respect and rest in power to the brother. He did a fabulous job with Venom. And like Keith David, he brought his acting chops to the voice work that made him a believable character. hilarious at times, vicious at others. He covered that really well. Yeah. Did I leave the theater proud as a black man? Let me see. Did I leave the theater proud as a black man? I didn't leave the theater disappointed and ashamed. I left the theater saying this was a good uh, uh, first step. I would have liked to see a couple of things, but it's nowhere near what I've been hearing for the last year and a half about what this film was supposed to be. It's not. I think you just have a lot of misdirected rage toward the character of Sam, toward Anthony Mackie, the actor, all of which is a stand-in for black men, which I think they're perceiving as DEI, beneficiaries. And I think that's where a lot of this is coming from, right? A lot of people are worried that, the DEI thing is still going to have its hold on what's coming out. I don't really think so. I think the stuff that's happening with are things that were in the pipeline already, that are still coming out now. I saw something very recently that applies to this, but I can't remember what it is that I saw recently. But when it comes to things that are just coming out now, but they're in the pipe, they've been in the pipeline for the last couple of years. Yeah, you're going to get some DEI and that stuff. But I don't think it's as much with this. I think, and that may have been partially what some of the reshoots were about as well, really starting to actually listen to the audience in terms of certain things. But yeah, so let me see. Golden Child says Dr. T is like a brother from another mother. BT's version of the animated Black Panther was the best too. It was actually really good. It was really, really good. The brother had played the Panther's voice. He did okay. It wasn't as impactful as Keith David or something, but he did well. He did well. He did okay. He gave I guess he gave Black Panther a sort of West African accent. But it was cool. It was cool. I liked it better than the Panther movie. I'll tell you that. I wish they had some cutting edge animation with it, but I get what they were doing. They were using the comic drawing as the basis for the animated, flick. Voice work was cool. But the sad part is, as much as I appreciated the special effects in the first Black Panther movie, the story and the characters I like better in the BET animated Black Panther. And another thing is, I've never really liked the Black Panther suit in the MCU. After what was it? Civil War. I liked the suit in Civil War. It looked like it had some heft to it. It looked like it could take bullets. Or at least more believably than what I saw. What I saw, in the Panther movies, it looked like he had a CGI T-shirt on or spandex shirt. The kind of shirt you go to the gym in. The little. It didn't look believable to me. But in Civil War, I thought that was my favorite Black Panther suit. I wanted to see an evolution of that suit that still looked somewhat believable, but it just looked too CGI. It looked too thin for me. After that, it wasn't my favorite thing, but most people didn't say anything about it, so it is what it is. It wasn't like I wasn't going to go see it because of that, but it wasn't my thing. Let's see here. Golden Child says, I didn't like Venom, The Last Dance. How you going to have a classic Spider-Man villain with no Spider-Man? Exactly. But I know a lot of people don't mind that kind of thing, in a lot of different genres. I think I'm pretty old school in a certain respect. I like certain things to be in place. I like my Spider-Man villains with a Spider-Man that's actually there. But then again, I'm the kind of cat that likes Star Wars with Jedis or Force users. I don't really like Star Wars without it. And, in certain spaces, that's blasphemy. So everybody takes to it differently. But, it is what it is. Let's see. Rainfire says Sony bought the rights to all Spider-Man villains. It's up this year. Craven was the last dumpster fire. Yeah, it was a dumpster fire too. It really was. I don't know how you do Craven without Spider-Man, but yeah, whatever. I saw it and I don't think I did a review. I don't think I lost anything by not doing one either. Yeah, what's this going on where I'm hearing they're bringing Black? There's no way they're not going to bring Black Panther back. To make as much money as they did on the first one, they're going to be chasing the dragon on that for years. So that that was the only reason we got a second. The first one did so well, they tried to cash in on the second and just they shit the bed. But there's no way they're not going to try again because of the popularity of the first. They really want to relive it. They want to bring that back. But I think the audience kind of gave them a spanking, so hopefully they'll come correct on this one. We're told we're finally going to get T'Challa back, but is it going to be the little boy that's grown up? Is it going to be a T'Challa from another universe? I don't know, but we'll see how they spin it. But they are going to spend something. There's too much money on the table with Panther for them not to do it. TCW says the voice was done by Jimon Hansu. Yeah, for the Black Panther anime series. Yeah, he did a good job. It like I said, it didn't have the gravitas of other actors, but it wasn't bad at all. I liked it. He was still masculine. You know what I mean? I appreciated that. So yeah, they did a good job with it. He should actually be in the movie in some capacity. But a young Jimon Hansu would have been a good Panther. He was physically fit. He's a good actor. Matter of fact, I'm about to probably watch. It's him and Treat Williams. Where they're on this cruise ship being attacked by what looks like monsters. I have it on DVD. I was about to watch it tonight, and I forgot until recently there was a young Jimon Hansu in the film. He would have been a good Panther. But anyway. Yeah, Joker hasn't had Batman. Yeah. I enjoyed the first Joker, but I like my Jokers with a Batman. I generally don't like watching a Joker movie without one, but I thought that first movie was an interesting story. It was actually interesting. I watched it and did not feel like it was a waste of my time. I'll let you know when I get around to watching the second one. I was not in a rush to do. Let me see. TCW says, I agree. I like the spin. The MCU did on the Black Panther suit also. Let me see. The movie Craven was trash. Yeah, I didn't like Craven, but then again, I wasn't a huge Craven fan in the comics either, so you got to take that into account. I guess I might have been a little biased. I didn't hate him, but I wasn't as excited about Craven as a lot of people were. So I guess, when he made it to the big screen, those are the people that were excited about it. I never really liked Craven much in the first place. So getting me to see a live action wasn't going to be the easiest thing to do. But I've been known, I've admitted when I was wrong. I mean, I was wrong about Heath Ledger playing the Joker. I thought that was going to be ridiculous. I liked Heath Ledger as an actor. I think I'd just seen him, playing in that movie as a knight, and it was somewhat comedic. He had some dramatic moments, but when you asked me if he could play the Joker, I just looked at you sideways like, no. And as far as I was concerned, he gave one of the best Joker performances in the history of the genre. So, and I was wrong about Guardians of the Galaxy. I personally hated the idea of a raccoon shooting people in a talking tree. I read a couple of the comics. I was not impressed. But honestly, I think a lot of that had to do with James Gunn. And I didn't appreciate that until I saw the Peacemaker series on DC. And that's when I knew a lot of what I liked about Guardians was because of Gunn. Gunn does really well with, people, character interaction. And he does really well at a certain level of what we might call a lowbrow humor. But it works. Those 3 Guardian movies were classics as far as I'm concerned. They hold up. They were really done well, and I still laugh when I watch them. I laughed when I watched Peacemaker, and I actually enjoyed the Creature Commandos, even though Gunn likes to use, C, D, and maybe even F level characters, and he likes to bring them into stories. He likes the nonsensical. He likes the absurd, and comic book companies have a whole lot of that. So when he got to DC and got free reign, he's pulling characters out of the DC encyclopedia that ain't nobody seeing on live action screen. I personally am not drawn to that. I like the heroes I like the villains I like. I don't want to see Detective Chimp in a goddamn movie, but that's a DC character. A lot of people like it. James Gunn is more than likely going to bring that character out somewhere. He likes those kinds of characters. But where I respect him is that he makes those characters actually worth watching. I mean, I never would have watched the Peacemaker series. But even when I first saw Peacemaker in the Suicide Squad, he was funny to me. And personally, I wasn't sure if a Suicide Squad movie would work. I actually enjoyed both movies for different reasons. But the thing I'll say about James Gunn is he knows how to take those B, C, D, and F level characters and actually make them part of a story that's entertaining. So I'm optimistic about what he's going to do. I have no idea how well it's going to come out. It could be horrible. It could be great. I have no idea. But what I will say is Gunn has made some things that I thought were great that I didn't think had a shot at being great. So he's earned the benefit of the doubt with me, and I will reserve judgment until I watch. I haven't seen anything in like the Superman trailer that I thought was horrible, even though there's a lot of blowback in different directions from people about it. But my thing is, with James Gunn, you just got to watch it to see if it's good or bad. It's not really going to be something you're going to pick up in a trailer. You got to sit down with James and watch it. And the way he'll weave together a story, I haven't seen him do a bad one yet, but I'll give him enough credit to say this is not going to be something that's just going to be determined in the trailer. Shout out to Joshua. Deep Rising. Thanks. Yeah. I've had Deep Rising on a DVD for years that I burned from whatever. And that movie is actually really good. It's one of those C-level movies that you don't expect to like until you sit down and watch it. And it's actually quite good. But yeah, you get a young Jimon Hansu in there. And he does his thing, Somebody said, Dwayne says, I want to see Denzel Washington's son play Black Panther. Okay. All right. Thanks. Black Male says, Doc, you appreciate and celebrate. Thanks for that. Appreciate that, man. Craven was trash. I literally fell asleep and slept through half the movie. I did too. I did too. Let me see. So Joshua says Black Panther cartoon was so dope because it showed T'Chaka disdain for white folks. Also, Wakanda was never hiding. It just couldn't be invaded, contrary to the movie. Right. And I liked how they showed historically the attempts at invading Wakanda in the animated series. You got to see why Wakanda was so revered, even within Africa. Different groups had tried to invade and were nowhere near successful. Dwayne says they better get my man Dr. Doom right. You ain't lying. You are not lying. I did not want to see Robert Downey come back as Doom. I wanted to see a whole new character. I hope he comes out in the Fantastic Four movie in some fashion. I kind of hoped he would show up in an after credit thing in this movie if need be, but not because it had anything to do with the story, but just because I've been waiting for them to get Doom right. And so far, none of the live action films have ever gotten Doom right. So I'm hoping they finally do. But when they showed Robert Downey Jr., I'm like, hey, it could be another Heath Ledger thing. He may be great, but I just wanted Doom to actually start out on his own 2 feet. So maybe we'll see how this goes. I don't understand how you do a Fantastic Four movie that doesn't have Doom or Black Panther for that matter, but they're off, they're off the beaten path, and they have been for the longest. I mean, we're just now getting an introduction to some of the metals that we haven't heard from since the beginning of the MCU that have been around for the longest. And you'll see that in this movie. So they're finally talking about, some of that, which is a slow, kind of preamble to X-Men. So they're ramping up, and we'll see how they do with that. But yeah, as far as Doom, I hope they get him right at some point. Even if Robert just plays him once, and then they introduce an in-universe Doom or something of that matter, I wouldn't mind that necessarily. As far as the Fantastic Four are concerned, I have minor issues so far. I think the trailer is good, and that is the best damn Ben Grimm I have ever seen on live action. They have finally gotten Ben right, even though I think there are little things that I quibble about. He could be bigger. I think he could be bigger as far as that. He could be bigger, and I didn't think his voice was gravelly enough. There needed to be some gravel to it. But short of that, the even like the this was the thing. I saw the trailer in the theater, which is different than watching it on my phone. I got to hear, it had much more resonance. And so even things like when he applauded, when he was standing in the kitchen, he applauded the sauce, I guess he was tasting. It didn't sound like two hands clapping. It sounded like rocks clapping against each other. I appreciated those little subtle things. So getting his voice right, making him bigger, I think those are the only two things wrong with Ben. Johnny, there's not a lot to say with Johnny. I mean, a lot of that's just going to come down to how much swag the actor brings to the character. He's a dude on fire flying around. In terms of the effects, he looks okay. I mean, I really haven't seen, as far as the special effects, a bad Johnny Storm as far as the fire is concerned. Personally, I wanted the Krasinskis, who played in the quiet movie, horror movies or whatever. I wanted that husband and wife duo to be Reed and Sue. They brought in, I think it's John Krasinski. I think they brought him in for Reed in the Doctor Strange movie. I thought he was absolutely perfect. He was absolutely perfect. Whatever reason they didn't bring him back as Reed, which I thought was a misstep. I don't like the cat. I won't say I don't like him. He's an okay actor in other areas. I don't think he was a good pick for Reed. But again, we'll see if I'm wrong. I really wanted them to go with John Krasinski, though. And I thought Emily Blunt would have been a good Sue, but we'll see what they do. We'll see what they do. But they better get Doom right. They've been screwing Doom over for years. Growth Talk says, I love the new Batman movie and the direction of the Penguin on Max. The Penguin was excellent. The new Batman movie is good. I don't know where they're going to go with it, because I don't think that's the Batman they're going to use in the new DC universe. So we'll see what they do. But yeah, that Penguin is flawless. That's the best Penguin. Penguin was never a character that I was excited about, but the way they did him in that series, I had to say that was the best rendition of Penguin I've ever seen, because they actually made him a villain. To me, he was always a one-dimensional character, and I like how they kind of broadened him out with that series. See, Dwayne says Fantastic Four looks good. I think I know how they're gonna do it. Okay. Final question, from Jeremy. What did you think about Denzel and Gladiator 2? You know what? I'll stick to my no spoilers thing. When I found out the history of the character, I believe I figured out why he chose that role. Based on the contemporary, Ado's history with slavery, I think there were some elements to that played into the film. Other than that, it wasn't my favorite movie. I mean, to me, Gladiator was kind of a one-off, but to my understanding, they're going to do a third one. So we'll see if that's just rumor or not, but that's my understanding. As far as Denzel's concerned, I thought his performance was okay. It wasn't like there wasn't, black folk in that area of the world at that time, contrary to what a lot of the white cats who were upset about Denzel being in the movie. It's like, you look at a map, look at where Greece and North Africa is, there's a lot of overlap. You had black popes. Black popes. So get over that. I mean, that was a historical reality. But I think for Denzel, it might have been tied to that slavery component that, from the contemporary that he brings back, in terms of his motivations for playing that character. Just my humble opinion. But I thought Denzel's acting he was cool. I mean, I haven't seen him do too many movies where I thought he shit the bed. So it wasn't that. I just didn't think it was the best vehicle for him. But I mean, what else? He don't need me. I mean, he's making his money. He's doing his thing. And he didn't give a bad performance. Hitflix says Deep Rising. Yep. Thank you for that. Check that out if you haven't seen it. Like I said, it's a movie that shouldn't be as good as it is, but it's good. It's funny when it needs to be funny. The horror elements are on point. The special effects are pretty good, especially when you consider the time period it was made in. It's an entertaining flick. The Golden Child says, in my opinion, Craven doesn't shine without Spider-Man. Same with Morpheus. I completely agree. Those are not characters I want to see without Spider-Man. Let's see. AB says, I am Groot. Damn, Craven look like he's ready to deal damage. All right. Okay. Superman looks meh. Okay. Anime has been getting my attention the most lately. I'd be on the edge of my seat. Geeked out. The depth is surreal. Okay. Let me know some of the things that you dig. I might need to check them out. Good to see you, Doc. I'm extra late. Durante, what's going on? Says James pissed me off after what he did to Henry Cavill. Yeah, that kind of surprised me. I mean, if I was the new actor playing Superman, now he bulked up. James, I think it's Cornsweat, is that his name? I've seen him in other movies. He bulked up considerably. I'd be a little pissed that you're gonna give me a suit where the fabric is 2 inches thick. I mean, and if I'm gonna work to put these muscles on, at some point I want them to be seen. You know, that cloth is so thick, it's just like, yeah, you know, you could have done what they did with The Boys and just put padding. All they got to do is show up thin and just put some padding in them with the fake muscles. If you're gonna put that much fabric on that, now I don't mind the design of the Superman suit. I'm just saying the fabric they chose is so thick. You kind of like, why did I spend this much time putting on all his muscles? So we're gonna see how that turns out. Hopefully it'll be all right. You know, will we ever get King of the Dead T'Challa? Man, they haven't even gotten basic T'Challa right yet. So we'll see about that. You know, I don't know. But yeah, man, I didn't see Henry Cavill getting booted out like that, especially by Gunn. So that took me by surprise. Let me see. Spain Man says Yahya Abdul Mateen II, in my opinion, is perfect. Oh, for Black Panther? Okay. Are they considering him? Let me know. Durante, appreciate that. He says, my tuition, I always appreciate you, man. Appreciate that. Thank you. RDJ doesn't look like he wants to come back. He's coming back as Doom, though. Spain Man says Aldous Hodge for Panther. Okay. He looks the part. He's a good actor. I enjoyed his recent series. You know, he did a really good job in the recent series he got playing the character Morgan Freeman. Did a couple films, and even Tyler Perry played. Name escapes me again. Sorry, y'all. Memory is what it is. But I thought he did a good job in it. You know, check it out if you haven't. TCW says, I hope someone retcons Spider-Man and Superman like they did Batman, because the latest ones are nerfed. They need to go back to the original canonic roots. Let's see. Kevin says Christoph Waltz should have been cast as Dr. Doom. Or what's homeboy's name? Mads McKellen or something? Mads. He was in the Doctor Strange movie, and he played the primary villain, but I thought he was really misused in the MCU. He should have been Doom to me. But he's got the arrogance, you know, he's kind of got that, almost that aristocratic arrogance just in how he looks at people. I thought was very Doom-like. But at the end of the day, there's one Doom animated, you know, series that I hope they base a lot of what they do off of it. And that came from, let me see, there were two versions of the Avengers. I think it was the Mighty Avengers animated show. Let me see. That Doom was the best Doom I had seen in an animated series. Yeah. Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes. That's the one. The Doom in that series is perfect. Absolutely perfect. The voice performance, the metallic sound in his voice, the arrogance, the aristocratic air, absolutely perfect. If you look at the clip on YouTube, you know, where he and Tony Stark have a conversation, it is pure fucking Doom. And if the movie can't get that right, you know, I don't know what else to tell you. But if you haven't seen it, go look at Avengers, the Earth's Mightiest Heroes, and then put in conversation between Doom and Tony Stark. That is the Doom I want to see in a damn movie. Fantastic Four, yeah, that Galactus looked good. That Galactus looked good, and they really look like they captured the '60s in that. As far as the white folks comic book '60s, all of that kind of looked like they finally got it off the page well. But we got to see how it performs when we finally get to watch it. Ray says, "Oh shit, Doc, haven't heard you say anything about them possibly bringing Jonathan Majors back." You know what? I'm glad. The brother, he deserves his flowers. He shouldn't have been fired in the first place. And then by the time he was exonerated, they still sat around and ignored him. So I'm glad he's getting a second chance. He's a brilliant actor. I mean, I loved him in a number of things. I think this magazine flick that he's got coming out looked good the first time I heard about it. And then it looked like they put it on ice when he was in court. And I'm glad they brought it out because he deserves to have his shot. And it looks like he's getting his shot back, which for black men is really rare in Hollywood. So I'm glad to see it. But I thought he's performed well in a number of things. I didn't. With Kang, I was split. I didn't like his Kang in Ant-Man, but I really liked his Kang in the Loki series. And so to me, it comes down to how it's written and what story they want to tell. But they tried to say he was like the next Thanos level villain, and I just wasn't impressed. He didn't really scare me in any kind of significant way. But he played well in the Loki series, and so I wanted to see him get his chance to fully flesh out his version of Kang. It wouldn't have been who I would have picked him to play, but it's already established. So let the brother finish his series out, and let us see what he was planning to do. But I loved him in Creed 3. I mean, I got boys like that. I loved him in Creed 3, so I was happy to kind of see him get to spread his wings a little bit. So I'm glad he's getting a second chance back. Kevin says, keep in mind that very first villain for the Fantastic Four was the Mole Man. Yeah, we'll see if they go there. CR Frank, appreciate that. Salute. Thank you. Okay, TCW says, I'm not looking forward to the Fantastic Four. I agree, Ben's voice not matching up. And it's a small change. You know what I mean? What they should do with Dr. Doom, adding that metallic sound to the voice, you do the same thing with Ben Grimm. You just add a little gravel, a little vibration, a little gravity to his voice. You don't have to do a lot, but he's a walking rock, so let him sound like one. So that aside, but like I said, the special effects on Ben Grimm, man, phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. The retro future look of the film looks good. Absolutely. I don't know how they're going to do that. Are they going to bring them up to the current moment? Are they going to time travel? Are they in the multiverse? Seeing a Fantastic Four movie in the '60s is great, but I also want to see what they have to contribute to the current moment. And if they were in their heyday in the '60s, then I don't know. But the Fantastic Four is that kind of universe spanning group where they're going to different universes and whatnot. So time travel for them would not really be a problem. So we'll see what they do with it. But if you're gonna just make the entire Fantastic Four series a history piece, you can't really see how they're gonna interact with the contemporary Marvel universe. But let's see what they do with it. Says apparently the Russo brothers say Anthony Mackie's Cap will play a big role in future movies. Okay. All right. Let's see. Says the Sony verse does not match up to the DC Marvel verse and comics on purpose. They said so. Says TCW. Yeah. But again, if you're going to take that risk and break from the comics, then come correct. And personally, I think you should be working with people that at least have a reverence for the comics. But when you bring in directors and writers who not only don't really dig the comics, they never read them, they're just going to pull something out they asked the last second and just throw things on the screen. I mean, I've heard of stories over the last 15 years where directors are like, well, we'll just make the character do this, and they're making these decisions on the spot. And I'm like, why don't you actually read the comic? And you would know what the character can do. You don't have to make things up. But when you don't respect the characters, you don't even respect the genre, but you want to just throw things together that you think look good, I don't have a lot of respect for it. Let's see. So Ray says, I just paid attention for the first time. One of your swords has a very long hilt, bro. Yeah, if you're talking about, I guess this one is the fourth one down. That's from Lord of the Rings. That was one of the elf soldiers. All of the elf soldiers had it. I think it was in the second movie when they were fighting at Helm's Deep. Yeah, the handle was as long as the blade, which I thought was a very unique design. I have some people that kind of see the swords in the background and they think I'm just hyper violent. They have no idea that it's tied to any kind of nerd or geek culture. I'm just like, I just got a bunch of swords up because I'm gonna kill you if you don't agree with me. Oh, I'm a geek. It is what it is. Let's see. Spain Man says, "Damn, they just don't come up with new stories like they used to." Nope. Joshua says Deep Rising could definitely have a sequel. They set it up for one at the end, but I think it was probably one of those. I wouldn't be surprised if it was one of those movies that did better in DVD than in theaters, because that was in the 90s. That's a lot of films made a whole second line of revenue off of DVDs, and once that industry died, the DVD industry, films weren't able to be made like they were before. So, a film like that would probably not be made today. Or if so, it would just, I don't know, maybe an indie kind of thing. But, for that film, I think it has a real cult following. I really do. DC needs to bring back Young Justice. That cartoon and other DC cartoons are killing it. I've heard they were doing another season. I mean, the whole Mary Sue thing, they did kind of delve into that in the last couple seasons, but Young Justice has been my favorite artistic and story-based kind of renditions of Justice League and whatnot. I think they did an excellent job, and there's a lot of potential there. They just got to move away from a lot of the Mary Sue stuff, and we'll see how they do with it. Let's see. Pragmatic says, "Hey Doc, have you watched Paradise on Hulu? Stars Sterling K. Brown." I have. I absolutely have. It's good. The only thing that I thought was a bit strange is, there's two black women in it. Well, one is a teenager, and they're both chasing down any white man they can find. They are trying real hard. I'm watching these black women in this story, and they are chasing them down, and I'm like, this is just ridiculous. But I will say Sterling is acting well. Sterling it's probably one of the most menacing performances I've seen. And it's not that his character is menacing, but he's a security guard for the president. So he's menacing the way he needs to be for that kind of role. And he's doing it well. I mean, a lot of times Sterling will play a silly kind of person, but in this, he is, 100%, in terms of how he carries himself, very intense. I like it. I like what he's doing. I think he's doing well. The only time I think I've seen him more menacing than that was probably in the Predators movie. But even in that movie, he was still funny. In this one, he's not playing around. And I think he's executive producing. So I think he's doing a good job. The only thing that just kind of looked funny to me is the only two black women on it are chasing any white boy they can track down. And it just, there's an insecurity to how that looks, but whatever. But no, it's a good series. It really is. King says the dude that played the villain in James Bond Casino Royale and that played Hannibal Lecter in the TV series should have played Doom. Yeah, that's the guy I was talking about, Mads. I don't know his last name. I keep saying McKellen, but I don't think that's right. But yeah, that's the one that I wanted to play Doom. I think he has that aristocratic arrogance. I think he can do, and he's imposing. He's not weak, and his voice and his performance or even his stature, he comes with some gravitas. I think he would be an excellent Doom. I think they misused him as the villain. I guess if you're deep into the Doctor Strange lore, his character's name may have had relevance. I wasn't that deep. I'd never heard of him. He needs to play somebody known because he's a quality actor. Let's see. I said Corey Gear says we should have had a Spidey X Morbius X Blade movie. Yeah. Wayne says I'm waiting on Daredevil, man. On Daredevil. Okay, well, it looks good. Last last commercials I saw or trailers I saw, they look good. We'll see. Regarding Fantastic Four, it may deal with multiple universes. Yeah. And hopefully that'll bring them into the contemporary era. Because in the comics, Reed was smarter than Tony. So to not have Reed and Tony is just the only smart person running around, well, outside of Bruce Banner and Shuri, but it's not quite right without Reed. And truthfully, without Professor X, you can't quite do the Illuminati without that, the whole band. And they never, but a lot of that I think was copyright, and it was just a question of when certain characters would open up. So it looks like that stuff is finally opening up, and hopefully it'll go well. But as far as Daredevil, it looked good. It looked like, just like with Captain America: Brave New World, the latest Daredevil looks like it's a statement to the audience that they're going back to form. And like I said, Cap was kind of a almost like a debt being paid, where they're saying, look, we're promising you we're heading back. This is a good first step. When you follow that up with Daredevil, it looks like they finally heard their audience. Now, we won't know until we actually see it, but Daredevil looks like a return to form, and some of those side projects, those characters they were bringing out, and they finally got rid of some of that extra weight, and it looks like Daredevil is going to be good. So we'll see. I'm hoping they do another Frank Castle Punisher series, but we'll see. TCW says Young Justice started out great. It really did. It really did. It came out real strong, and they need to get back to that, and hopefully they will. But it never fell off completely. To me, they just went a little far out, and it needs to come back to form. But and of course they haven't. Wally's still gone. Flash is still gone. When I started reading Flash in the 90s, I started with Wally. I mean, Barry disappeared for years in the comics. So when I finally started paying attention to Flash, he was still gone, but he kind of bored me anyway, because Barry had been around since like the 60s. So when I started reading Wally as Flash, he was actually faster than Barry. He was the fastest Flash. And so I liked that era. In the Justice League, they played Wally as an idiot, which I didn't like, because he's not an idiot. He's not necessarily the scientific, brilliant mind that Barry is, but he wasn't an idiot either. And in Justice League, they really played him up to be an idiot. So I was hoping with Young Justice, we'd actually get to see an adult Wally come back in faster than Barry, grown man. And they're kind of priming it for that, because he can't stay dead forever. He's not. So, a Young Justice that brings Wally back would be a good move. Hopefully they will. Let's see. Bring Luke Cage back. Yeah, I haven't heard anything about whether or not they're going to bring back Luke Cage, but they need to. And they brought him back for a few things in the comics, so he's not forgotten about completely. I just don't know why. I'm not hearing any buzz about it. But he was played well, and the story was. The 2 seasons of Luke Cage were good. I actually enjoyed them. I really enjoyed both seasons of Luke Cage, and I was hoping to see it elevated to the film level, but you kind of have to tie him into the Avengers and something in order to do it. But I thought both series were well. I wouldn't be upset if he got a Disney Plus series. Wouldn't be upset. He did really well with Netflix. Wouldn't be upset. But truthfully, a lot of those series was good. The Punisher was good. Hell, even Jennifer Jones or whatever, that was actually a good series. They did well. They did well with the Netflix series. Netflix says Yaya is going to be Wonder Man. Well, I have no idea exactly. But Wonder Man was never a character I really liked a whole lot. I never disliked him. He just wasn't on my radar. I read a few things with him in it, and I just wasn't moved. I'm not generally a fan of race swapping characters. I'd rather see black characters, especially black male characters, just written well. Even new characters, just write them well. As long as you write them well, you got my attention. They don't need to take over every character just to have a place. But at the same time, Wonder Man, So we'll see. This will either be a Heath Ledger Joker moment or it'll fall flat. We'll see. I know there's going to be, but just like with Captain America, you're going to have a lot of people who are pissed off at the race swap, and there be accusations of DEI. So we'll see how Yaya does. But a lot of people don't understand. Black men don't fall in that Mary Sue DEI camp. We don't fall in either camp, in any camp really, outside of our own. And people don't seem to understand that. Black Nerd Talk says Alex Ross. Thank you. Yeah, when I was talking about Aldous Hodge, he did an excellent job in the Alex Ross series. So go check that if you haven't. He did a really good job, and it's a good job in that he's a younger version character of Alex Cross, whereas Morgan Freeman is playing him years later, and so you can see the difference in the maturity, and that's one of the things I thought was interesting. He's far less mature than when you see him for the first time on screen with Morgan Freeman playing him. He's a seasoned, grizzled yet refined kind of, character. But when you see him as a younger man with Aldous, he's not in complete control of his temper. He's a hothead. And I like to see the character play, because then when you see them next to each other, you can kind of see the implied evolution of the character. And I think Aldous kind of brought that. It was a very young performance of something that I think Morgan Freeman played well as an older man. So, if you haven't seen Alex Cross, go check that out. Kevin says that was Mads Mikkelsen. See, I may be, torturing the pronunciation, but thank you, Mads. Yeah, Mads is to me, that's the perfect Doctor Doom. Let me see. I messed up the Mandarin character. He could have been an ongoing villain too. Yeah. The problem with Mandarin, just like with the Ancient One in the Doctor Strange series, it was so steeped in Asian stereotypes. They had to figure out how to clean that shit up if they wanted to sell to China. They had to figure it out. So with the Ancient One, they just went left and portrayed it as a Celtic white woman, and then the Mandarin, they really did a number on the Mandarin. I thought it had potential, but I didn't really, I reviewed it at the time. I didn't really get into, I didn't like the way they went about it. And I went into more detail when I reviewed Shang-Chi at that time. I don't remember a lot of what I said, but yeah, it wasn't memorable. And especially when the first appearance of the quote unquote Mandarin, when it was performed by an actor, it was hilarious. Don't get me wrong. It was hilarious. But a lot of Mandarin fans were pissed. So I love the fact that they actually had this little short where the actor's in jail and gets a notification that that Mandarin does actually exist, and he didn't like that shit. That was hilarious. But yeah, they kind of had to clean those characters up in some way. I didn't think they did it the best way, but they didn't really have a choice, because when those characters were written and how they were written, it was going back to a racist period of Marvel that they could not do in this era. It's not happening. It's not happening. Fantastic Four is compared to the Jetsons back in the day. Yeah. And they kind of, you can feel that element in the trailer anyway. Says Blackmail says Majors was under contract. The MCU owes him. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm glad they're paying him because he deserved it. He didn't do what he was accused of. He was exonerated. They should have never fired him in the first place. But usually brothers don't get a second chance after something like that. So, hopefully he'll get to thrive. Says if Daredevil goes right, I want them to bring back Luke Cage season 3. Exactly. Ray says, one anime, dear brother, I can give you is called Kingdom. The battles, strategies, the politics within, and the character development will amaze you. I think it goes to 5 seasons, waiting for 6. Okay. My son is real deep into anime. And as an artist in the 80s and the 90s, I was very much about, a distinct Black American art form that I wanted to see. I don't know if you guys ever read the comic book series that came out of Atlanta called Brother Man. I wanted to see a distinct Black American art form. And we saw a little bit of that with Milestone, with Brother Man. I wanted to see that go into the animated realm. So I was more inspired by what anime meant to Japan and for Japan. I just wanted to see something like that for us. So I never followed anime because I wanted to see that more for us. But it didn't really happen to the extent that I wanted it to. So I never got into it. But my son is deep. There's the two subjects he can talk about like a PhD is anime and video games. And because I'm not really into either, we kind of talk past each other sometimes. But I will ask him about Kingdom and I'll check it out because he loves anime, all things anime. Let's see. Kingdom is dope. Okay. Shout out to Drew. Appreciate that support. Let's see. Yeah, okay. All right. Shout out to Growth Talks. Is DCU and MCU both should have a comic fan citizen review board? 5 diehard comic fans. That's real talk, man. That is real talk, yeah. Oh man, I forgot Invincible had a new episode today. I'm gonna get off and watch that. Thanks, Ray, for reminding me. Young Justice season 1 and 2 are awesome. Exactly. Shout out to Corey Gear for that. Let's see. White Man Chasing in Paradise, way too cringe. Yeah. Let's see. TCW, they refuse to do black characters right on purpose. They could do a lot more great movies and characters if they expound to others and write them well. Exactly. Mads Mikkelsen, yeah. Yep. So shout out to Snatch Adam 69, says Mad Mikkelsen, Hail Hydra. Are y'all talking about Daniel Craig? No. All right. Let's see here. Okay, Rainfire says in certain run on the FF, they explain some of Reed's intelligence due to him stretching his neurons. That was kind of different, yeah, especially with the Maker. So we'll see how they do. Growth Talk says, I love all the Netflix Marvel shows except Iron Fist. I like it, but it was only so. I didn't really dig Iron Fist, man. I really didn't. I didn't like Iron Fist, but I thought all the other ones were good. I just didn't like Iron Fist. And then by the end, his girl got the Iron Fist power too, and I was like, oh, here we go. All right, let's see. In the comics, Luke Cage is a politician now and married to Jessica Jones. Yeah. There's a lot they could do with Luke because he still has plenty of stories in the comics since then. So there's a lot they could do. Let's see. All right, hold on. Okay, just trying to speed through. Okay. Yeah, I stayed on longer than I planned to, but this has been fun. So, OJB Gaming says I've been watching Cross. It is good. I usually watch it when I'm with the loctician. Yeah, no, it's good. Stephen C. Finley says I subscribe. Appreciate that, man. Thank you. Kevin says Jonathan Majors should sue ex-girlfriend for defamation. Yeah, real talk. She sure damn near destroyed his whole career. So hopefully he learns moving forward. Especially at that level, whoever you bring into your life, they got to understand the game. They got to understand the role you got to play on and off the screen. Somebody says, I heard a brother, man. I believe Entertainment Tonight did a piece on it. Oh, man, it was fabulous. It was fabulous. It was an all-black city, and he was a lawyer / nighttime vigilante. But, oh, man, the artwork was phenomenal. Right? And as soon as you saw it, it just made you think black. I mean, it just had a whole, it had a whole kind of vibe to it that was just black. I mean, it was as black as watching Fat Albert back in the day. Like you just knew it was black, where you actually saw black characters with, and it wasn't most of the time the color. The only thing that was colored, it was black and white. The only thing that was colored were the covers. But the way they drew this, everything from the skin shading to the lips, to the noses, it was done by black men who have a love for black aesthetics. You know what I mean? It wasn't drawn by white artists approximating what black people look like. It was done by someone you could tell that actually loves black people. And I think that comes across in what you produce, whether it's whatever the production is. But in this comic book format, black people look like black people. The hair texture, the body dimensions for women and men. It was so well done. And I really hoped it would evolve, but I don't think it really got a chance to, in terms of moving into an animated, maybe live action series. But if you can find some old Brother Man comics, I think I have all of them. I want to say it was somewhere around 10 of them that they did, but they were really big. They weren't like regular comic book size, and they were just really well done artistically, story wise. A lot of humor, especially in the background. Even roasting, they were roasting people in the back. It was just it was a well done. And at that time, you could only get Brother Man like at black bookstores. You weren't going to the traditional comic book store and finding Brother Man, at least not that I ever saw. Only place I could get him in the Bay Area, you had to go to San Francisco or Oakland to the two black bookstores. And then I moved to LA, and you could pick it up there, but you had to find a black bookstore to get it. And it was an excellent series. So if you can find Brother Man, check it out. It's worth it. I think it was a couple brothers and a friend. There was 3 brothers, I think, that put that whole thing together. But I'm not doing them their due by kind of mentioning it the way I am. You got to check it out yourself. You can find it. This is him, a black man wearing a suit and eating a salad, was controversial at the time. Yeah, because he was all about being in shape and eating pure and whatnot. He didn't want that, But anyway, all right. Let me see. Black Nerd Talk says there's 2 anime I'd recommend. 86 deals with systemic racism, but not in a corny way. And Vinland is one my son introduced me to. Heavily explores different ideas and archetypes of masculinity. Yeah, he was really into Vinland. Problem is he wants to show me things that have so many seasons and episodes that I'm just like, man, I'm not watching all of that. So he can't really show it to me the way he really wants to. Let me see. Okay, OJ says you and your son should go to MegaCon. I promise you he'll have a blast. Me and my girl went and she even enjoyed herself. Okay. Where's that at? Okay, I'm about caught up. Yeah, Kevin, you might need to start a comic book channel. Yeah, nothing wrong with that. Let's see. Kevin says they can do a series with Luke Cage and Iron Fist doing their hero for hire business. Yeah, I mean they did it in the animated, Earth's Mightiest Heroes. You see them, as heroes for hire, so it's there. To be done. But I personally want to see Luke evolve into what I'm seeing in the comics now, and I hope they let him. I do. If it's Rock, if I mispronounced that, I apologize. He says, do y'all remember Black Gold comics? I don't. I will look it up though. I don't remember that. Irvin says, salute. What's good? Salute TCW. Yeah. And Corey says, I think the creator of Brother Man might hail from Philly. Yeah, I thought it was Atlanta, but you might be right. Like I said, this was the early 90s. This was over 30 years ago. But let me see. They deserve at least a moment to be yeah. This is it. Hold on. I gotta share this. Got to share it. Yeah, there you go. There you go. So you can see him. The character is a younger man. This when they did a flashback. See the flashback there. I guess they have some of them on Amazon. That's good to know. Let me see how much. I guess they're running them for $30. guess you can still buy some of them new on Amazon. So that's what's up. That's good to know. Yeah, man. Brother Man was it. Like you see that there. It's one of the images of him as an adult. You know, like I said, the first time I saw it, the first thing it made me, I was like, Fat Albert. Like it just had that vibe where you knew that it was black people. That black people had a serious hand in making it. I mean, look at the hairline on this brother right here. I mean, that you don't see a whole lot of that in white series about black characters. It's just you got to kind of be in the culture to kind of really kind of see those elements. But here you go. How Brother Man Forever Changed Comics. I wanna mention their names, and this is probably the last thing I'll do tonight. But I just think it's due out of respect for what they created. I just want to get their names right. So this is an article from 2017, How Brother Man Forever Changed Comics. I'm gonna put the link in the box in case any of you want to look at it. But these brothers did some fabulous work. So let me see. It says first black superhero in mainstream American comics was the Black Panther, introduced in 1966, but there have been other influential characters since then. Brother Man Comics is a story of a public prosecutor who hits the streets at night seeking justice. The series helped change the way African Americans are portrayed in comics. An exhibit about the series is at Atlanta's Auburn Avenue Research Library. Emory University also created a virtual world from the Brother Man universe, which will be featured at the Decatur Book Festival. So this is 2017, so this is a while ago. Okay, they didn't even mention the names. Damn. Okay. Dawood and Yabwili. I know I've butchered that. But damn it, I thought they would have more there. That's right. But if you can find it, look up. Let me see if the creators, they have to be listed here. Okay, here we go. So I'm gonna I just put up the Amazon page. You can right. So Guy Sims, author, Dawood Anya Wille, illustrator, Brian McGee, illustrator. They kind of put these together and they did a fabulous job. Look at that paperback, 110 pages. This was released in 2016. I don't know if I've seen this, but it says about the author. Guy A. Sims is the principal writer for the Brother Man series. He is also the author of the Cold Hard Cases of Duke Denham and critically acclaimed novel Living Just a Little. Guy has recently written the adaptation for Monster, the graphic novel by Walter Dean Myers, published by HarperCollins. So let me see. Dawood. Do you have any info on him? Okay, so I guess he did a book called Crossover. Yeah. So I mean, the brothers have stayed busy. And I think at least two of them were biological brothers. So, but anyway, if you haven't checked it out, give it a try. It's worth it, especially if you can find all of them. But it really hit in the early 90s because it fit the vibe. It fit the music, it fit the aesthetics, the fashion. It was all right there at the same time. So, if you get it now, or at least the original first 10 or so, you're going to be taken back to the early 90s. I mean, that was back when, when somebody told you a new EPMD album was out, you went to the record store, you picked it up, popped it in your car, and it was as dope as possible simply because. I mean, that was kind of an era where you didn't have to wait to see if the album was worth buying. You just bought it when you found out the artist came out with something and it was bumping. So you kind of have that whole era to it. And so, I'd be listening to, a lot of that. Even had a couple characters that reminded me of Eric and Parrish in a way. But you could be listening to your favorite hip hop, reading that, and it all kind of just fit. So, yeah. But anyway, can draw any connections with TF1 Megatron. Okay. All right. Well, I'm gonna close it down. Like I said, I wasn't gonna be here that long, but I just kind of wanted to say overall, uh, the film's a good first step. It's not the best thing you've ever seen, but it isn't what these people on YouTube are presenting it as. A lot of that has to do with politics, and they're pissed off about something that doesn't actually have to do with us, and they're trying to project it onto us. And I'll give Mackie his flowers. I mean, he's not Wesley. He's not what Wesley Snipes is to Blade. Well, I guess technically he is as far as Falcon is concerned, but I think he's done a good enough job for me to tip my hat to him. I'll put it to you that way. It's not the best thing I've ever seen, but it's far from the worst. And you know, brothers are saying he's going to get to continue with the character. I'm rather glad to hear that. Whether he gets his own standalone movie again, you know, I'm not sure. Based on it, it's going to depend on how this one does. There's been a lot of bad press about this one before, long before it ever even had a chance. So I'm not sure if he'll ever get a solo film again, but I wouldn't say it's for lack of trying. And any faults to the film, I would not attribute to him. I think he did the best he could, in an environment that was, really hostile to black men. I think the MCU has been hostile to black men, and I think the push against the MCU, although I agree with significant portions of that push and critique of the MCU, I think they tend to be very anti-black male as well. And so I think both Sam Wilson and Anthony Mackie are kind of getting caught between those two opposing forces. And so a lot of the critique is undeserved. So check it yourself. I want to hear your feedback. Definitely tell me in the comments what you thought about it. And if you want, an in-depth spoiler, version, let me know, and I'll bring people up and we can chop it up. Anyway, that said, appreciate y'all coming through. It's good to see y'all. Y'all have a good night. I will holler at y'all later. Y'all have a good one. All right. Peace.